Hello students, today we are going to start poem 3rd B, The Ball poem by John Berryman. Let us read more about the poet. John Berryman was an American poet and scholar born in McAlester, Oklahoma. He was a major figure in American poetry in the second half of the 20th century and was considered a key figure in the confessional school of poetry. His best known work is the Dream Songs. Let us understand the central idea of the poem. The poet John Berryman, in the Ball poem, describes the grief of a boy over the loss of his ball. With that loss, he senses his first responsibility in a materialistic world, where those whom you love and your worldly possessions will not be with you forever. What is the boy now? Who has lost his ball? What? What is he to do? I saw it go, merrily bouncing down the street, and then merrily over. There it is in the water. No use to say, oh, there are other balls. An ultimate shaking grief fixes the boy as he stands rigid, trembling, staring down all his young days into the harbor where his ball went. I would not intrude on him. A dime, another ball is worthless. Merrily means cheerful, bouncing means jumping up and down, grief means sorrow, and rigid means fixed. The poet is talking about a boy who has lost his ball. He wants to know about him and his reaction because he has lost his ball. Further, he asks to himself that what this boy will do after losing his ball. The poet has seen the ball going away from the boy. He says that the ball was cheerfully jumping up and down in the street. This means that when the ball skipped from boy's hand, it went into the street and later on it fell into the nearby river. The poet says that there is no benefit of consoling the boy by saying that he will get another ball because he has other balls too. He says so because the boy is feeling very sad. He is completely surrounded by sorrow. He is sad because all the memories of the childhood days went down the harbor with the ball. Here the poet says that the boy is very sad as the ball, which has now gone into the water, reminds him of those sweet memories of the times when he owned it. This ball is unbearable for him and he is grief-stricken. The poet says that he can't even tell the boy to take some money from him in order to buy another ball. He says so because the new ball will not bring the sense of belonging to the boy. He senses his first responsibility in a world of possessions. People will take balls. Balls will be lost always, little boy. And no one buys a ball back. Money is external. He is learning well behind his desperate eyes. The epistemology of loss, how to stand up, knowing what every man must one day know, and most know many days how to stand up. Further, the poet says that the time has come for the boy to learn the responsibility of taking care of his things. Possessions means ownership, and epistemology of loss means understanding the nature of loss, what it means to lose something. Here, the poet says that the boy has to learn that in this materialistic world, many of his belongings will be lost. He personifies the ball as his belongings, be it the worldly things or the relationships he is in possession of. So, he says that he has to learn to live without them, no matter what. He says no one can buy back such things for him. The poet said so because according to him, money can't buy you everything. If it does buy you some materialistic thing, still it will not be able to buy the sense of belongingness. He says that the boy is learning how to stand up against the sense of lost things. This means that the boy is trying to learn the real truth of life, which states that you have to accept the miseries of life and stand up again. This is the truth which everyone has to learn in his or her life. The harsh truth of standing up against the odd miseries of life that everyone has to bear. Now I will discuss some poetic devices with you. First line, what is the boy now who has lost his ball? Yeah, there are two figures of speech, that is interrogation and alliteration. Interrogation because a question is asked not for the sake of an answer but for poetic effect, and alliteration because the consonant sound H is repeated in the words has and his. Next line, what is he to do? Here there are three figures of speech, that is interrogation, repetition and internal rhyme. Interrogation because a question is asked not for the sake of an answer but for poetic effect. Repetition because the word what is repeated for poetic effect. Internal rhyme because the rhyming words to and do are used in the same sentence for poetic effect. Next line, I saw it go merrily bouncing down the street. Personification figure of speech because the inanimate ball is given the human quality of merrily bouncing. Next line, and then merrily over there it is in the water. Here there are three figure of speech, that is personification, exclamation and alliteration. Personification because the inanimate ball is given the human quality of merrily bouncing. Exclamation because an exclamatory form is used for poetic effect. And alliteration because the consonant sound th is repeated in the words there, the and then. Next line, no use to say, oh, there are other balls. Lighted is an exclamation figure of speech. Lighted is because a negation is used to convey the positive meaning that it is useless to say that there are other balls. Exclamation because an exclamatory form is used for poetic effect. Next line, an ultimate shaking grief fixes the boy. Transferred epithet figure of speech because the adjective ultimate shaking has been transferred from the boy to his grief with which he is closely related. Next line, as he stands rigid, trembling, staring down. Internal rhyme and alliteration figure of speech. Internal rhyme because the rhyming words trembling and staring are used in the same sentence, and alliteration because the consonant sound st is repeated in the words stands and staring. Next line, all his young days into the harbour where his ball went. Here there are three figure of speech, that is transferred epithet, repetition and metaphor. Transferred epithet because the adjective young has been transferred from the boy to his day with which he is associated. Repetition because the word his is repeated for poetic effect, and metaphor because there is indirect comparison between the childhood of the boy and the ball. The point of comparison is that they are lost. Next line, I would not intrude on him. Lightotus figure of speech because a negation is used to convey the positive meaning that I would leave him alone. Next line, a dime another ball is worthless. Hyperbole figure of speech because an overstatement that another ball has no value. He senses first responsibility in a world of possessions. Epigram figure of speech because a pointed statement that the loss of the ball teaches him the meaning of what it feels to lose one's worldly possession. Next line, people will take balls, balls will be lost always, little boy. Here there are three figure of speech, that is repetition, alliteration and apostrophe. Repetition because the word what is repeated for poetic effect, and alliteration because the consonant sound b is repeated in the words balls, b and boy, and apostrophe because direct address is made to the boy who doesn't respond. Next line, and no one buys a ball back, money is external. Alliteration and litotus figure of speech. Alliteration because the consonant sound b is repeated in the words ball, back and buys, and litotus because negation is used to convey a positive meaning that one hardly buys a ball back. Next line, he is learning well behind his desperate eyes. The epistemology of loss. Here there are two figure of speech, that is transferred epithet and synecdoche. Transferred epithet because the adjective desperate has been transferred from the boy to his eyes with which he is closely related, and synecdoche because part eyes stand for the boy. Next line, how to stand up knowing what every man must one day know. Alliteration figure of speech because the consonant sound K is repeated in the words knowing and know, and the consonant sound M is repeated in the words man and must. Next line, and most know many days how to stand up. Alliteration figure of speech, because the consonant sound M is repeated in the words most and many. So I hope students you would have understood the poem and poetic devices. Thank you.